I am Todd Rayburn.
My name's Nick.
I am one of the owners of Tribe Mycelium.
I work with Todd. We own this mushroom company, Tribe Mycelium.
And I am the head grower of all of our mushrooms. So I make sure that everything that we grow grows and grows with good yields and that we keep everything healthy and happy.
I do a lot of the processing here at Tribe. I take the mushrooms that Todd has harvested, we break them down, we turn them into capsules, tinctures, powders. I help run a lot of the farmers markets and coordinate that. We're constantly searching for talent, so anyone out there looking for a gig at a farmers market, reach out to us.
I was an IT consultant for 20 plus years, and I was looking for something else, my career. I didn't want to continue to do this till retirement, if you will, and something I had, some more esoteric attachment to.
I had an amazing time in college with mushrooms, learning about different mycorrhizal fungi and beneficial fungi that can stimulate other kind of processes in biology and nature. So growing food or trees for carbon sequestration, that was like huge. And the first time I heard Paul Stamets' name was like back in 2012, 2013 in college, when a friend of mine was like, yeah, you should check out this if you're really into mushrooms. This guy's got some really cool stuff going on. Then other friends had given me his book over time. And I always thought like growing mushrooms myself was kind of like this very elusive project. I was like, that seems like way too sciencey for me. I'm more like, I kind of consider mushrooms like baking, and like working with plants is kind of like cooking. Like you can make more mistakes a little bit. There's more of a buffer system. With baking, you have to be very, very strategic and spot on, and very much with mushrooms too.
Pandemic hit, and Nick, my business partner, me and some friends of ours, we rented Fantastic Fungi, like right when it came out. So we all watched it, and Nick and I'm like, let's do this. Like, I want to be part of this movement. Like, it was like kind of an aha moment. Paul Stamets sold us, essentially, is what happened. We want to be part of this, let's do this, and that just started it.
Yeah, sat down on the couch at Todd's house, watched this movie, and we're like, wow. I cried. It definitely brought tears to my eyes, and I was like, this is so moving, and it'd be great to be a part of this movement. So I thought, why not just get into it? I
quit my job, I want to learn, and so I spent most of 2020, or half of 2020 and most of 2021 learning to grow. We were doing it all out of my house. Actually, our spawn lab is still in my house. So I've got a very nice genetic spawn lab in my spare bedroom. That's how we did it. We were inspired by Fantastic Fungi. We want to be part of the mushroom movement, and it's just snowballs from there.
Here we are now, 4 or 5 years later, from meeting Todd, and getting together and really saying, okay, and just answering that question every day. This is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna plan out the season and the years. It is fun and is very rewarding.
My favorite part is, for me, it's the being in the day-to-day of the growing. I really like growing reishi and shiitakes just because they're so unique. And you see, especially with the reishi, they create these neat coral formations. It's almost alien, the way they look. And to do that day to day, I think that's pretty cool to be part of that. And to watch that happen and being the fulcrum that started that, it's pretty fun.
My favorite part is kind of getting feedback from these people, having that one-on-one interaction or sometimes group interaction from people at the farmers markets. We get to meet our customer. It's a lot of our business is face-to-face. That is very reassuring when you have a business where you're having to do the same thing over and over again. So it's like, why am I doing this? It's like, oh, because these people are getting benefit from it, and they're so far removed from the mushroom world, they have no idea what goes on behind the scenes. And it's really validating and comforting to know that people are getting benefit from mushrooms, and they're learning more about mushrooms, and they're questioning more about their own healthcare, or seeking out alternative medicine, not going with the status quo. So having this springboard for people to launch from is really exciting. So I would say that's probably my favorite part of it. And it'll probably morph as time goes on, And in the beginning, it was oh yeah, I want to grow mushrooms, let's our first harvest was wow. And now we're harvesting every week, and so the kind of the shine is not as shiny for me personally. But then it brings it back because you meet these people who get to see the end product, and then they come back and they're like, yeah, I really enjoyed that. Can I get some more? And it's oh wow, okay. So yeah, I would say it's Yeah, very validating to hear people's feedback.
Our problem initially was, getting into the big farmers markets because there is a protocol to follow, and then keeping our production level, getting us to a professional level, so that we can meet all of the requirements of actually being a business, so that we have products week over week. Going to a true commercial level, that was, it's one thing to learn how to grow in small batch, it's a whole nother thing to learn how to grow on scale. First getting in, okay, great. Now then can we actually, get to scale and learn to continue to meet all of, the commercial requirements, so that, we aren't looked at as, oh, well, sometimes these guys have stuff. You don't ever want to be put into that basket.
For us, the markets have been the best because it's been direct to consumer. We make the best profit out of that, and we get to talk to our consumers too. So we get feedback and like, hey, I didn't like this, or this didn't taste good, or like, can you change your packaging or your labeling? So if I wanted to give this to my grandma, I didn't have to tell her what you told me. Things like that are really key. I think farmers markets are a great way to get that feedback. And so for us, it's been the best way. But I think there's a lot of other good ways, and it depends on your business model. We focus on that face-to-face interaction because a lot of mushrooms is education. But I think as we move more into the technological age, I think face-to-face is going to become more prized and coveted and appreciated. And I think if you can capitalize on that, the conversational piece, connecting with your consumer, building trust, then you'll be much better off. Farmers markets are a great way to do that. We had 3 farmers markets before we got to a really big one, where it was okay, this is our demographic, this is the kind of people that are interested to hear about mushrooms, and they're and they have, and they're ready to buy mushrooms. Some people, when we were at first markets, they would just give us the side eye, older demographics would be like, what kind of mushrooms you got? They were just very so I was like, oh, this is not where we want to be. This isn't our target audience, But it also kind of you can play off that too, And a lot of times I get those people, and I'll joke with them, and they'll appreciate the fact that I called them out, and I was kind of a smart ass, and that pulls them in a little bit. So it just depends, It's just I think a lot of it has to do with your personality and what kind of how you can interact with your consumer. How do you interface with your consumer?
What's great about the mushroom business is that it's still in its burgeoning stages in the U.S. especially, and a lot of what we do is educational, right? And I enjoy that part of it, and then having people coming back after they have had positive experiences with our products, and that it's actually helped them. We've had multiple people with neuropathy, that have really gotten into our lion's mane products. It's helped them with their movement, getting their feeling back in their feet and things like that. And we've had some of our products, like our electric brainwave, people have gotten off Adderall, right? It's they've turned to that versus using a pharmaceutical. So that kind of interaction where people, we see the marketplace expanding and that we've been part of that, providing that information, getting people involved and educated with mushrooms. I think that's part. It's absolutely been really rewarding for us. And then, as we start to ramp up here in this new space, we're opening up new markets and we're getting more exposure, and those interactions start to happen more, which keeps us excited, right? We realize that this marketplace is something that A, people need, and then B, we get to be part of it.
Todd and I got together and we're okay, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for that. We're gonna break it up a little bit at a time, because you think, oh yeah, I want to start this business, but you don't realize all these small steps you have to take, taxes and forms to fill out to get into a farmer's market, liability insurance, all this stuff that's doesn't really make growing mushrooms fun. But those are the steps you need to take, and that is just one part of the puzzle. And getting all these ingredients or getting all this equipment, phasing it out, timing of the deliveries. That was one thing that was a big eye-opener for me when we got started. It was okay, you can't do it all at once, and you can't do it all by yourself. You have to split it up. You have to take small chunks at a time. And now we look back and we're wow, we've come so far, but it was because we broke up those big steps into smaller steps and took small bites out of the cookie at a time, and now we're the Cookie Monster.
To continue to bring these kind of high-quality products to people from the mushroom world, that they truly have a massive benefit. There's more and more studies that continue to come out, particularly with lion's mane. You know, my mom has dementia, or is on the beginnings of dementia, like to help people with these things that aren't, you know, necessarily pharmaceutical based, that are not difficult to attain, right? And they're naturally grown. You can meet the people doing it, boots on the ground, not just some, nebulous thing where it's supposed to be good for you. You can literally find out all of this information, and particularly with the lion's mane and the cordyceps, and the turkey tail. Like turkey tail particularly fantastic for the immune system. I mean, and the pharmaceutical was waking up to that. Like there's particular products derived from turkey tail that they're giving to cancer patients post chemo because it helps them build their immune system, like their T cells, their white blood cells grow, and like this is all stuff that the average person can have access to. It doesn't have to be this pharmaceutical-based product. It's naturally grown. It's been around for thousands of years, and Western society is just now catching up. Eastern society, Chinese society, Japan, Korea, they've all known about these products for thousands of years, and now we're kind of, hey, we're looking for something beyond a capsule, and that is definitely a passion of ours, is to make sure get that information out, and so everyone can be a part of that.
As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.
My purpose is to educate as many as I can, as much as I can, about the power of mushrooms, the power of alternative medicine. And mushrooms are just one cog in the wheel. Like there's all these other healthy lifestyle changes that you can make once you realize and you step out of this, Western medicine paradigm. We're very fortunate to have this platform as a business, this vehicle that allows us to educate people and bring alternatives to folks that are sometimes lost, or they don't have an answer for some of the things that they've encountered. We help them with their solutions, and that's a big driving force for me, and I believe for Todd as well, for us as a company. That's one of our missions, is to spread the mushrooms, but also awareness about, because mushrooms are still alternative. They are still they're not the norm yet in most of society, Western society. So that's a huge drive for us, is like to create small, impactful change on a local level, and then we all learn together. I'm a big believer in each one teach one. Like we all have a skill to share, we all have a talent. The more we come together and the more we unite, the greater we are. Rising tide floats all boats.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize is that essentially we're doing is vertical farming. So they're often surprised that we're growing indoors and in tents, because we'll be up at markets in the middle of summer and it's 115, and you're like, well, they immediately assume that we have bought these from someone else and brought to the market. No, like we grew them ourselves. We grow indoors, and everything grows vertically on shelves and racks inside of grow tents. And I think they're often surprised by that fact that we're growing 365 indoors.
It's a lot of rinse and repeat, and it's a lot of clean, sterile procedures that you're going to be exposed to a lot of isopropyl alcohol and bleach, and you're going to be having to wear a lot of personal protective equipment, and that it's not as sexy as it looks on the outside. And I think you could say that about a lot of things.
You are growing a fungi, and you want to make sure that's the only one that is growing. We have a variety of different ways that we do that. So the first and foremost is cleanliness. So we have what are called sterile procedures. So when we come in every day, we have a certain amount of processes that we follow. So we wipe everything down before we even use it. So we've got our steel tables. First you wipe those down, typically with bleach water before you start, and then you do your process, and as you go you wipe it down, and then when you finish you clean everything up. And same thing with our grow tent. So we usually harvest twice a week, so after each harvest we clean. So Wednesdays and Fridays, or sometimes it's Tuesdays and Fridays, it always depends, because the mushrooms don't always listen. They're typically on their own schedule. So whatever days of the week we harvest, we always clean afterwards, because the substrate can fall off, that can become contaminant, and you being in there is, we cover our hands, we cover our feet, and we try and keep our speaking down to a minimum, because our mouths are some of the dirtiest places on the planet. Once we've been in there, we've been harvesting and breaking things loose and things fall off, we wipe everything down, sweep out the whole thing, and make sure everything's nice and clean for the remainder of the time, remainder of the week.
I think people don't realize like how much of a dedication it is, a commitment it is, because most people only see the actual mushroom after we've harvested it, right? Most people only see that loaf of bread after it's already been baked and went through that whole process. And they don't understand the health benefits of mushrooms too. That is something that is in some of these bigger cities and in nationally as a whole, folks are waking up to the benefits of mushrooms as alternative medicine. They have these compounds that are not found anywhere else in nature, which is like really incredible. As another thing that kind of excites me about mushrooms is like learning about these compounds and learning about new mushrooms, and like there's this key in the lock, you know, where it just fits and you don't have to like synthesize it. You don't have to get it from a pharmacy. You know, you can get it from nature. You can get it from a tent. Yeah, I would say that that's another surprising thing. All the health benefits of all the different kinds of mushrooms too. I'm excited to see where we go as a country and as a Western society integrating more of this stuff from the Eastern medicine side. We just do a fraction because we can't do it all. You know, we don't want to spread too thin. So we just focus on 5 or 6 or now 7 different varieties. We can target and replicate and get into that rinse and repeat process.
You're looking at the space. You know, we've got just roughly 1,800 square feet here, and we've got 3 10 by 10 grow tents. You know, and we can easily produce up to 100 pounds of mushrooms a week. That is the appealing part. You don't need a whole lot of space. You can grow up versus out, and you can just continue to have week over week crops. You don't really have a season. Your season is every day of the week. That makes it, you know, pretty appealing from a commodity standpoint. You don't really have an off season. You can continue to produce, you know, week over week crops and, you know, get your product out. So just like any kind of cultivation, there's a process you follow, and it is just repeat, repeat, repeat. So like for instance, you know, we're doing, you know, 400 to 600 pounds of substrate a week. When we make substrate, it's a pretty straight formula of water, oak hardwood pellets, organic soy hull, and as well as wheat bran. So it's, you know, it's a formula you always follow. You make, and it's a 10-pound bag. So you fill your 50 to 60 10-pound bags a week, and then the same thing with the harvest. You're pulling out your 10 to 30 bags that you're harvesting from, and harvest, chop, chop, chop. And the same thing what we do when we're putting bags into the tent. You follow a similar process for each, like for instance shiitakes. You bang on the bag, you take the whole block out of the bag, which is unique among the shiitake, you know, among the mushrooms. Shiitakes have to be. Other ones like the lion's mane, you just make a cut in the bag, and the whole bag in the block goes in. So you follow each of those processes time and time again to get you through your grow. Lots of routine and process that you continually follow so that it leads you to success. Music is key. That is absolutely, lots of music that helps keep you focused, and because that's the other thing, is you want to follow your process because you don't want to lead to any contamination, and that's that's sterile procedures, following your processes, doing things the right way, if you will, and that leads you to not having any issues that where if you can keep your eye on the ball. Oh, I'm going to leave that piece of substrate on the ground. No, you got to clean that up. So you got to follow the rules. Plants and vegetables, unless you're growing in a hoop house or some sort of indoor grow, it's very seasonal. And obviously you're growing in the dirt. You're not using a vertical technique where you're literally, everything is self-contained in a bag. And the other thing is the substrate. So it's very different than just soil. So you're using, particularly the hardwood ones that we grow, they're literally growing off a hardwood. So they're growing off oak or some other hardwood. So the grow medium is very unique, for sure. And the other thing is you're putting in a set amount of water, and you're not constantly having to water the soil/substrate. Once you put the water in, it's self-contained. And even with the shiitakes, when that brining process essentially seals the block, so the water that's in the block stays in the block. And now while we do humidify, we're not literally watering all the time and have to worry about a certain point that, hey, the crop is getting dry, because each bag has got its own self-contained amount of water that we add when we're creating the substrate. You think of a traditional garden, you have seeds, right? You plant your seeds and you water, and then 2 to 4 to 6 weeks later, up come your plant. Well, with mushrooms, it's called grain spawn. So you start with some sort of genetics, which is usually an agar petri dish, where the mycelium, our name, which is the root network of the mushroom, the primordial growth, if you will, you would put the spores onto an agar plate, let them grow out, right? So you'd see the mycelium coming out of the spores. And then what you do in your genetic work, you pick ones that have the best growth. So you'll see on your agar plate that, oh wow, this guy on this section here really exploded versus these other spores on the other side of the plate. So you'll cut that out. You'll make a separate agar plate with that, with your high growth. And then that becomes the root. So you kind of start in the beginning with the spore, you grow that out, you look for your winners, and you cut those out of here, make other agar plates out of those, and that becomes your starting point. And we'll take that and we'll put it into another grow medium, which becomes your grain spawn. So it's usually some type of grain. We use milo or sorghum. You do a very similar process to your substrate. You put it through a sterilization process first, and then in front of your flow hood, and if your sterile environment, you take your petri dish, your agar, and you put it into your grow medium, your spawn, and then it'll take that over, and the root network will expand and grow and grow and grow within 5 to 10 days, 14 days depending on the mushroom. Usually within 10 days it's what we call colonized, and that is our seed. That spawn becomes what we seed all of our substrate blocks with to actually begin the grow process of the mushrooms.
I just want to give thanks to the people that pioneered this industry for us, and even locally, Southwest Mushrooms, Mike Crow was kind of a huge impetus for us to get started. I definitely want to give thanks to our teachers and the founders and the pioneers of the industry, because without them, we would not be here. We're definitely standing on the shoulders of giants, and I want to say thanks to those guys and girls out there who have helped us to where we are today, and have written the books, who have taken the time, who have failed countless times to be able to have these successes that we can then build off of. Both Todd and I are super grateful. I mean, we're in the books constantly, so and we're on YouTube a lot. It's also comforting to know that our struggles are not our own. That's another really cool thing about it, is that when you have hard days or you have failures, contamination, you're oh yeah, okay, this guy had this too. This is how he overcame that. Let's replicate that, or let's take that concept and try and work it into our network.
I feel pretty fortunate to be able to be in this space. Is really what every day we get to come here and do something that we have passion behind, and it's been great.
Hire us to tell your story. As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination.
The fruits of our labor literally creates happiness.
Founded in 2020, we harness our collective experience and enthusiasm for storytelling to deliver content that resonates with viewers on every level.
Think big and think outside of the box.
We avoid the constant noise of clickbait news and outrage headlines, instead crafting more intimate narratives that touch on the purpose of life itself. Stories that not only inform but also inspire, whether it's the art of agriculture, the science of fermentation, an innovative garage startup, or the intricacies of off-grid living. We're here to explore it all and invite you to join us in the discovery.
You're just working with what you have at hand instead of having unrealistic expectations.
We know the world is brimming with hidden stories waiting to be told. These are tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
The biggest thing is to realize that there's nothing that you can't do.
Embodying the American spirit that with hard work, dreams really can come true. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.